Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode in our series on the Suez Canal.
The Suez Canal?
The Suez Canal.
The
Whose canal?
Susan.
The Dr.
Whoa.
Seuss Canal.
Dr. Seuss's Canal. I'm your host, Tong, and today I'm joined by a few of our usual suspects. We got ourselves Luke,
Yo.
Andy,
Hello.
and returning after a brief hiatus, Kevin.
I can't believe you wrote this out word for word in the notes.
Oh, I didn't write that out. I didn't say hiatus, but today we're going to be diving neck deep into the newly completed Suez Canal and discover that to control the waters, you've got to be swimming in cash. And when one dries up, the other quickly does too. So,
The water dries up, or the money dries up, then the water dries up?
I mean, it kind of makes sense both ways if you think about it.
All right.
A canal's no good if there's no water flowing through it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
That could be a nice
It's
subway.
not a canal if there's no
A couple
water,
hundred
though.
years in the
Like,
future.
it's just a ditch.
Yeah.
It's just a huge
but
ditch.
it could be good for like trains eventually.
Well, you got to build
That's
tracks
not
in
how
there.
trains work.
I mean,
Trains
you
don't
could
just go
It
on
would
empty.
definitely take some
You don't
effort.
just take a crack in the ground and throw a train down it. Like,
Yes, you need to make roads, and it would be very difficult. But you have to use
It'd
that
be a
space somehow.
subway.
Hold on. Are you saying trains run on roads, Andy?
I said
Right.
railroads, rails for short.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Maybe it'd become a subway. Then we'd be asking, is it a sandwich? Or
although
But-
the problem is, trains can only go up and down fairly shallow inclines. So if you have a big divot in the ground, it's got to go down and then it's got to come up again. And you have to.
How
No,
about we
no.
just make it like the old
Manage
Hyperloop? That sounds like a good idea.
Elon Musk, get on that, right? Oh,
Mhm.
man. Well, anyways, since this is Kevin's first time in the Suez Canal stuff, you guys want to do a quick recap in terms of the whole canal?
You can do it.
Sure.
Honestly, it might be better if I don't have context.
Well, I mean, sure enough, basically, the Khedives of Egypt, which are like the viceroys, they're technically ruling in the name of the Ottoman Sultan, are investing heavily in building a huge canal, a canal which is funded and also kind of like designed by the French. And by 1869, under the reign of Khedive Ismael, he now has officially created the Suez Canal connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. And also, he owns about 44% of the entire canal, the rest of it being owned by the French and scattered Muslim communities throughout. And funnily enough, even though that the canal is heavily associated with the British nowadays, the Brits weren't huge fans of this entire thing, especially since they invested a lot in railways, and also South Africa is kind of their thing. So they didn't really jump in on the ground level when the Suez Canal project started up. And a lot like Tesla, when the whole thing was finished and the stocks were soaring, now they don't have any of it. So even though this entire canal is able to cut transportation between London to Bombay by half, and eventually the British would end up being responsible for like 80% of the entire canal's shipping, the British at this point don't own a single bit of it.
Wait, do people regularly go from London to Bombay?
Back in the day, yeah, if you're shipping goods.
Trade. Tea.
Yeah. Tea.
Bombay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in
where
India.
else? Where else are the British gonna get their tea time and crumpets?
That's true. They actually did use India as a huge tea plantation back in the day.
Right.
And also the idea is that like you're shipping other goods instrumental for domination. So like you got troops you got to ship over there for a local insurrection. How are you going to do it? You got to go through either the long way around through South Africa, or you got to go and cut through the Suez Canal.
How about the Northwest Passage?
They're still looking for that. They're still sending a few people out there, get frozen in the ice, and then die.
They'll find it.
Yeah,
Tradition.
Fun stuff. Yeah. Tradition. Like the Franklin Pierce expedition. That's a fun one. If you ever want to see like modern mummies, just look at some of the dead crewmates that they burned.
I'm good.
Yeah. No, you're gonna get
promise.
nightmares. I saw a book about that stuff when I was like in elementary school and freaked the fuck out, honestly. Scary shit, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyways. So at this point, Britain sees a golden opportunity to really speed up their shipping and also like communications too. Because like at the end of the day, if you're sending messages and stuff back and forth, it's nice to have a waterway helping with that too. But how could they get their hands on the whole canal, or even a part of it, if it's basically pretty much owned by the Egyptians and the French? Well, that's where the debt comes into play.
Yay!
Oh yeah, Egypt is in debt.
Huzzah!
Hoorah!
It's
We've
a
done it.
golden opportunity, honestly. So basically, Egypt's economy, they tried briefly to industrialize under the reign of Muhammad Ali, who's like the founder of the Khedives of Egypt.
I thought he was a boxer.
He's a multi-talented individual, 1800s, he was a Khedive. 1900s, he starts boxing. So
It's good stuff.
Kind of went downhill from there.
2016, we don't talk about that.
To be fair,
No,
that's a
sir.
fairly large downgrade.
Yeah, to go from ruling basically one of the largest provinces of the Ottoman Empire to basically being a boxer.
I mean, Muhammad Ali as the boxer was pretty darn good.
He was like the boxer for a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, but now he's
But why punch people when you can just tell them to leave?
Yeah, or tell
But
them
you
to
see,
punch other people.
People roam Los Angeles with boxing gloves in their trunk just in case they ever got a chance to see Muhammad Ali and ask him for an autograph on his boxing gloves. I'd say that's pretty rad.
I thought you
Oh,
were
I
gonna
thought
say
you were
that
gonna
they
say
looked
that
around
you
looking
punched
for
him.
people to box. Yeah.
or even like they run into Muhammad Ali. It's like, oh wait, stop the car! Jumps into the back, grabs their boxing gloves, and just like knocks him out from the side.
Yeah,
Oh, good
somehow
luck.
I don't
Completely
think that would go
unsuspecting.
very well.
I say that because my girlfriend's dad did just that.
Punched Muhammad Ali.
Well, no.
God
he
damn.
Carried boxing gloves around LA, seeking an autograph from him at one point.
Hot damn!
And he got it.
Nice. Well, pays off, I guess. I mean, I was just thinking he was gonna go the way of you know how Houdini basically just got socked in the stomach by a bunch of kids. Or like, you say you're impervious to punches, right? It's like, well, yeah, but like, that's for the shows. I gotta like get ready first. And then they just like socked him a good one, and there's he's bleeding out. That's funny. And it just ran.
And then
away.
he got into a tank and he died. Unrelated incident.
Couldn't get out of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But basically, the economy of Egypt, they tried to industrialize briefly under Muhammad Ali, but his big brain move is that like the best way to industrialize our country is by building all of our weapons. And that way, so we could build up a strong army, and then we could conquer more places and take their resources. We'll do what the West does and like industrialize to imperialize. It's a genius big brain move.
Oh boy, do they.
And the British are like, hey, you can't do that. Only we can do that, okay? Only Europeans can go about knocking out other sovereign states like the Ottomans. Ottomans, by the way, you're good if you listen to us, so shut up. We'll take care of your problem. But you owe us big. And they basically shooed Muhammad Ali and his Egyptian forces back. And they basically forced them to have to like demilitarize. So now that their entire economy's driving force is gone, they're like, well, what are we going to do? And then they got news in like from Great Britain again. It's like, they just overhear a few guys. It's like, I say, old chap, you ever hear about this little civil war going on in our former colonies? Are you talking about the Americans? I say, I do believe that we're going to be running short on cotton. Turns out that the North does have quite a fleet, and the South don't know how to swim their cotton over to the British Isles. And the Egyptians are like, well, we can grow cotton. And grow cotton they did. And that became like their economy basis for like pretty much the entirety of the 1860s. And the thing is, I mean, the Civil War didn't really last that long. And after that was done, the cotton economy kind of just kicked right back into high gear in the South.
And
so that
Oh, no.
monopoly and all the moolah that the Egyptians were getting from this cotton trade just quickly went down the drain again. And it also didn't help that during this time period, Ismael is like, let's go invade Sudan, and then gets his ass whooped. And then he's like, let's go and westernize all of the Egyptian cities. Because, look, if we want to be treated seriously, we got to look like Europeans, too. We got to make Egypt part of Europe,
So what,
we're
they're going to whiteface?
Nah, not quite. I mean, they could still, like, pass that off, I suppose. But they're
people
going
really
with the
wanted to
whole-
believe in white Egypt back in the day, so they might have
Also-
been able to do it.
Also, technically, like, his lineage was Albanian. So, like, he could pass for Eastern European or, like, Balkans, technically.
Yeah, but those
'cause
weren't really the most loved groups in Western Europe either.
That's true, except for the Russians. I think the Russians cared a bit about them, and the
Yeah.
Austro-Hungarians because they had every single ethnicity pretty much under the sun in their
Which
empire.
wasn't,
that
which
work
didn't
out.
end up too well. No,
No, sir, not at
those
all.
dang Croats.
It's a reason. There's a reason why Austro-Hungary isn't a place anymore. But basically, he goes ahead and he basically transforms Cairo and Alexandria into like Little Italy and Little Paris, and
Little Europe.
yeah, pretty much. And he just like westernizes the fuck out of these like buildings. Like you walk in there, literally, it looks like you walked into the streets of like downtown Paris. Gaslights and streetcars and European stucco buildings all over the place. And that's kind of expensive, you know? So, big brain move part 2. Okay, we don't have the cotton to pay for things. Let's take out loans, you know? Because
Good.
that's not gonna kick us in the ass, right?
Good.
Because this always goes well.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just a
Always.
small loan. It's not much. Like everyone takes out a loan every once in a while, you know.
But how small?
Loans are
$1
good
million?
for the economy.
Well, he starts off at his reign in 1863 with a national debt of £3 million, and by 1875, not even 20 years of him being in power, that £3 million has increased to £100 million of debt.
To be fair, looking at how the U.S. is doing right now, they're okay.
No, but by
I
this
guess.
point in history, people hadn't figured out that yet that money isn't real. So
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
this is
They
still
didn't know
grounded in
about
gold
gold.
standard and all that.
people
stuff.
were expected to pay back their debts in money
yeah,
instead
Wow.
of just sort of
or property, or
yeah.
you know, your country, as we'll see is what happens here.
yes.
But basically, like that's £100 million in terms of like the baseline, and that's not counting hidden costs, commission fees, and an interest rate of about 10%.
Compound?
I don't think it was compound. That would be hell of a. Actually, you know what? I would be
10%?
surprised if it was compound.
I mean, that's no good.
That is no
It's,
bueno, to borrow a Massachusetts term phrase.
Oh yes.
Don't
Is-
worry, friend.
is that a
It's-
massive-
It's
wait,
just
that's-
it's a
Yeah.
small principle. You can.
You know the
handle
word
it.
that comes from Massachusetts, bueno.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I'm not a big finance guy, so I wouldn't really know. But like, most interest rates aren't this high, right?
Yeah, I mean that'll lead to like what hyperinflation.
Yeah, for per year, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, as an annual interest rate, it's like
Yeah, that's called profiteering.
pretty much. I mean, they're basically like, I mean, like pretend I'm a banker, right? Like, I'm smoking a fat cigar in my little office in London, and so I get news that Egypt wants to like borrow some money over here, and I'm like, hey, Frank the accountant.
My name's Kevin.
Yeah, shut up, Frank. Anyways, look, I got this Egyptian fellow over here who's saying he wants to take out a loan for around £50 million.
Isn't
is
this
there
guy
any-
like 100 million in debt?
Yeah. I mean, look, you gotta take risks to make money, okay? I just want to
Doesn't that-
make sure we get a lot of money out of this guy.
It doesn't really count as a risk if you know you're not getting it back.
Well, that's the whole point. Look, it ain't called predatory lending if you're not gonna eat them alive for this whole loan, okay?
Bitcoinic?
So, look, you're the accountant, I'm the banker, I'm the bigwig here. So you run the numbers. Tell me any ways to spice things up. How can I get more money out of this guy?
I mean, you could give him a higher interest, but he's
So,
not
like,
going
what?
to pay it back anyway.
Are you talking about like what? 4%, 5%?
Sure.
Nah.
I don't think it really matters if he doesn't give it back.
Yeah, you know, why not go big? You're absolutely right. Let's go 10%. That's
Oh,
a nice
no.
round number. Okay. Anything else? Wait, Frank, how much are we paying you nowadays?
Less than that?
Well, less than 10%. Of course, it's less than 10%. It's 5 million.
You got a
I-
pound the other day.
Yeah, I gave you like £1.05, right?
Something like that, yeah.
All right, okay, and we'll change the commission fee here to £50,000. Let's just go for that to cover the costs of paying my employees. Sounds good.
Uh-huh. Right, yeah.
And a consultation fee because I had to talk to you for these few minutes and it just drained me of life. I'll throw in another £20,000 on top of that. Oh, and contract fee. Paper costs money, right? Let's charge them for that.
Yeah,
Ink
like
as
a,
well.
like a few pence.
Yeah, you're right. Like a few dozen pounds. We'll keep it on the light. Only 100.
We'll
Sorry,
just round up to the nearest 100 pounds or whatever.
You're absolutely right. You know what? Let's just write it off. They said they wanted a loan of 50,000. If they don't sign this by the end of day today, and since they're in Egypt, we'll see how fast they can get that turned around. We could go ahead and charge them double. I think that's good. I
Are
think
they
that's
allowed
reasonable.
to charge commission fees for talking to their own accountants to the Egyptians?
You
Yeah,
think
boss,
these
this
Egyptians
seems-
know what's going on?
That's
Look,
true.
boss, this seems incredibly illegal and amoral.
Hey, Frank,
And
Frank,
wrong.
Frank, I'm a level with you. I'm gonna be Frank. Ha, you see what I did there, Frank?
Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah. Anyways, look, I don't pay you to tell me what's moral.
You
Okay.
don't
barely
pay
pay
him.
me.
Right. But I don't give you the minimum wage for you to tell me what is and isn't moral, okay? I got a philosophy degree to be able to flaunt my morals as much as I want. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this, and you just make the numbers look good, okay? Sound good, Frank?
Okay.
All right, okay. Wonderful. Anyways, let's send this document over, and we'll see how well this works out.
Well, not like I'm gonna get work anywhere else anyway.
So,
Good man.
pretty much with these huge commissions and high interest rates and hidden costs and all that stuff, that 100 million pounds by 1875, also with the fact that their entire economy is tanking because it's all based on the export of cotton, and cotton's no longer a highly priced commodity anymore. Our good friend Ismael is trying to find a way to just keep things afloat in Egypt. So he's like, look, I know I fucked up with these loans. I know they're going to pay back eventually because people, like, we own 44% of the Suez Canal. That is going to make us bank, yo. And also, like, the European cities, it's going to make us seem like a big deal. And Europeans don't screw each other over, bruh. If they
Hold
recognize
on,
us,
how do you only own 44% of the canal?
because the French came up with the idea.
Yeah.
So,
That's
They
a
got the
very
patent.
specific number.
I mean, you got to buy shares. That's the whole point. And this is after negotiating, too. I think it was like a bit less initially.
It was 10, I
Um,
believe.
No,
Wow,
it was
just a
around.
bit
It was
less.
around 40%.
Oh, okay.
But like, basically, he bumped it up a bit, and he also outlawed the use of forced labor to dig the canals. So
That's
kind of
right.
a sweet deal. Yeah. The forced labor, which by the way, the British were like, how inhumane, using forced labor to dig your canals. And meanwhile, in India, they're like, please, sir, can I just have another break? I've been working 12-hour shifts in the hot sun. Shut up, you. Go back to the plantations. So basically, at this point, he's like, I got the canal. It's going to pay off, I swear. And all this money that I'm pouring to these big fancy cities and palaces and shit, that's just going to make us look like rich and powerful figures. It's all about looking the part. And if they think we're powerful, they're not going to screw us over. They're going to think we're one of their own. We're going to be like the Europeans. And if we look like them, and if we act like them, we're going to be like them, and we can expand like these other imperialist powers.
I think he's misunderstanding the look like them part.
No, he's got it down exactly right. So look, we just have to hold things over until things start paying off.
Yep.
Show them that we're willing to live up to our end of the bargain. So we need to like scrounge up some cash fast.
Loans.
No, the
More
loans aren't going to
loans.
work anymore. Well, okay, we can do more loans. We'll take out loans to pay the interest on the other loans.
Refinancing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And meanwhile, back in London, yo, Frank. Hey, Frank, the accountant.
He
My
died.
name's Kevin.
Okay, Frank, I just got the same Egyptian fellow over here. He says he wants to take out a loan to pay on the interest from that last loan.
We haven't even gotten back the other loan.
I know. So I was thinking, why don't we just go ahead with this? It only makes sense, right? We get money back.
It does?
We're paying ourselves. And we're making them feel bad, too, if we don't do this. I kind of feel bad for the guy.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of your fault?
What if you repo the canal?
Jimmy, I didn't ask you about... Wait a second, that's genius! Holy shit! Frank, get the fuck out of here. Jimmy, you're in as the new accountant. Okay.
Yay!
Oh,
All right. Okay, so, Jimmy, I'm looking for a number here. They say they owe us 100 million pounds at this point. Okay?
Uh-huh.
how much do you think we should ask for the canal?
How much should we ask for the canal?
Yeah, it's like just the most instrumental part of our infrastructure connecting our global empire and is a important part of our national security. I gotta give a figure to my friend in Parliament here, okay?
Well, you see, we have them with all these refinanced loans and whatnot. I'm sure that if we relieve them of, say, I don't know, the latest loan they took out, just make them pay back the principal on that one, and we can call it even Steven.
What, are you talking about the £8 million that we loaned them last week?
No, too much. We make them pay half the principal or whatever.
I like how you think, Jimmy. £4 million. How about that? And sure enough, Egypt straight up sold all of their shares in the Suez Canal to Great Britain for £4 million. That is, once again, 4% of the entirety of their debts.
Wow.
Why did they do that?
Because they were like, we just gotta scrounge up enough money to like shore things over until things finally work out.
And what about their whole canal?
I thought the whole shore things over until they work out involved the Suez Canal making things work out.
Hey, look, this is also the guy who, in an attempt to keep away bankruptcy, he offered a plan to like the big wealthy landowners to pay 6 times the amount of their total tax revenue, like annual tax revenue, to then never have to pay taxes again.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
Oh
no! What a genius plan!
Amazing.
All we need is to just pull ourselves out of debt, and then we don't need to ever worry about making money again.
I know economics already.
He doesn't seem to understand that living costs money.
Yeah, I mean,
this man values living in the moment far more than living in 10 minutes.
People like to say that economics lasts for 1 quarter, but this man really thinks it lasts for 6 years.
He fucking sold his canal for 1 quarter, more likely.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. But to the surprise of absolutely no one, in 1876, Ismael is just like, well, shit, we're bankrupt. We can't pay this anymore. So, now, when most people hear the word bankrupt, I mean, I don't know about you, but I usually get the sense of like, oh no, this is terrible. Like, this is going to drastically damage the economy.
I think it's Monopoly. I think that's why.
Yeah, I think Monopoly too.
Yeah, but like for the British, they're the kind of guy who's like, oh, if it's bankrupt, that means I get to buy things from the bank for half the price.
Blowout sale.
Pretty much. Exactly. They're the guys who are like, hey, I heard Kmart's going under. Let's go and buy all the hot fries from Kmart.
No.
Except when you get there, they have nothing left but like.
If they're a high schooler, they're just going to be like, let's steal it. Let's walk out with. Yeah, there was a lot of shoplifting.
Hey, Kmart closed before the lootings.
No. General shoplifting.
Damn.
There's a ton of that. Like all the middle schoolers went over and shoplifted. It happened.
After they declared bankruptcy?
I didn't. No, before, like a lot before.
Oh, like even before our local Kmart went under.
Yes.
Wow, naturally.
Damn.
So hypothetically,
so in this case, the middle schoolers are the British.
Yes. They're ruthless. The middle schoolers, they're scary now.
Damn.
They're causing trouble.
Want to get on their
ruffians.
bad side.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I ran into a couple of middle schoolers behind the fence during graduation. And he asked me, "Yo, you got some weed, bro?"
Oh yeah, they do that. Some elementary schoolers are drooling. It's bad times.
They're panhandling for
really?
drugs.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's like really early into like brain development.
Oh yeah. No, they're gonna die.
I mean, no one said it was legal, but like,
yeah.
Damn. Huh. Well, I guess just like the British, they don't really care what's legal and what isn't. But
I mean, there's no like international law, and in the same way in our town, there's no like.
There's no law in our town.
Child judiciary, yeah.
I mean, there is. It's called the law, but
but who pays attention to that?
Yeah,
it's like the Geneva Convention.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So just like, the U.S. is like, hey, if any of our guys get sent to The Hague, we'll invade it. The kids are like, we're going to rob all the Kmarts if you stop us from drooling. It happens.
Well, in this case, I guess we didn't quite have the police coming by to stop the British from robbing Egypt raw.
Because they're the police.
What, the international police? Are you talking about America?
No, the British, the English, they're the police of themselves.
That's true, yeah. And
Yes,
when
the
one
police
polices
of
oneself,
themselves.
it always goes off well,
Uh-huh.
So, but of course they are the British, so they do have protocol to do this kind of thing. So, 1876, the London Gazette reports Egypt has gone bankrupt, and the bankers are immediately like, "Fuck, Frank, Frank."
You fired him.
Oh fuck, that's right, Jimmy.
Oi.
Why didn't you tell me that Egypt was gonna go under? I loaned them millions of pounds here. How am I gonna collect on this? Who told me I could do this?
That limey Frank did.
Frank, I knew it. He should have told me to stop when I could. But this isn't gonna work.
I need a job, please.
Shut up, Frank. This isn't gonna work. Frank screwed us over. Now the Egyptians are bankrupt. What are we gonna do? You know what? I'm gonna do what every law-abiding rich citizen of England does. I'm gonna write to my local parliament member. Hello? Yeah. Arnold Arnsbury? Yeah. I was, look, I heard that you got an election coming up. And, you were kind of on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Yeah, I did read about Egypt going under. Could you, look into that and see if there's any way we could get over this problem? I mean, I don't care how you do it, but look, we just gotta make sure that the money is flowing, and for the sake of the Egyptians, yeah, and your campaign too. Yeah, hop to it, chop. All right, good talk. I'm gonna hang up my imaginary phone, which doesn't exist at this time period.
Good.
So England is incentivized to inject some moolah into Egypt now.
$1,200, yeah.
The
Wow,
freedom.
That's funny. That is really funny. You would think they were gonna give them $1,200 worth of money.
Of course not.
No. The British government, they go ahead and they send over a committee to go and see what's going on, and they come back and they're like, long story short, Egypt's economy is fucked, and we gotta step in to restore credit for Egypt. And so, yeah, maybe there were a few bleeding hearts who were like, maybe we should give them another loan so that we could help with their development funds and we could direct their efforts.
This is the equivalent of giving a homeless guy in the street a bottle of booze.
Nah, you know what they did instead? They're like, no, we can't trust the fucking Egyptians to run their economy. No, sir, we are the British. We are the financiers of the world, and that means we will take over the finances of Egypt. We're not going to give them money. We're going to run the fucking show.
Oh, no.
And so, the very same year...
We're gonna repo the country.
Pretty much. So in 1876, Britain goes ahead.
This is just colonization with extra steps.
I mean,
this
is just colonization. There's
No, this is
extra step here.
colonization with slightly fewer steps. No military occupation this time.
Not
Okay,
yet,
slightly different steps.
Yep.
Yeah, they're different.
Arguably more efficient, too, if you think about
Oh,
it. If you're
yeah.
just going there for the money, well, I guess you got it. So,
Given Egypt already half colonized itself.
It kind of did, arguably. Because as I said before, they've been building Western cities and trying to promote a Western style of elite education, and also to attract all the Westerners too. They were like, you don't need to pay taxes in our country if you want to set up shop. So all sorts of scandalous people were coming over from Europe just to set up things and dodge the law. But the year that Egypt went bankrupt in 1876, Britain goes ahead and proposed a public debt commission for Egypt. Now, because they didn't want to make it look like they were the only ones going in on this and the only ones trying to hammer Egypt and turn it into a colony, which, keep in mind, technically Egypt wasn't even its own country. It was run by the Ottomans officially. So Britain didn't want to go ahead and knock over that big cheese just yet. So instead, they went ahead and dragged in the French, the Italians, and Austro-Hungary. Which, once again, Austro-Hungary has no overseas colonies, but they were just like, fuck it, join us. It's not like they're doing anything important right now. And they basically had a big council, a commission formed from representatives from these four countries. And just to make sure all the debt repayment money was coming in on time, they also set a British and a French controller right into the Egyptian government to dictate Egyptian expenditure. So it's like, imagine if China sent its representatives to America and basically placed two people into the House of Representatives to determine the budget for the country.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, pretty much. So, as you can imagine, not very good stuff. And the British sent quite a character over. A chap by the name of Evelyn Barry. Bearing, like burying your teeth. Bearing.
Did he have an evil mustache?
He did.
Oh.
It's not particularly evil. It's kind of tame, actually, in the grand scheme of things.
Evelyn's
monocle?
a dude.
Yeah. Evelyn, though.
Well, they wouldn't send a woman over to do a man's work. Of course
That's
not.
right.
No, they
You're
would
right.
send a man with a woman's name to do a man's work.
Yeah, silly me.
Yeah. But this guy here, he kind of got his start in the Indian Foreign Services, and he was like, I say, there's no way to exploit the Indians anymore. We gotta go and find another people to exploit. And meanwhile, Parliament Knox is like, well, hey there, old chap, I hear you're trying to find a new job opportunity. How about you joins us in Egypt, eh? And he's like, jolly good. Let me go ahead and bring my entire colonization kit over, including all my racial prejudice of non-white Europeans, and also any sort of means of reducing autonomy of the local governance. Smashing. And then he goes on over and decides, you know what? The best way to make the Egyptians pay on time is for their king to give up all of his estate. And keep in mind, this guy owns like about a fifth of all the land in Egypt. So he just steps up to the Khedive, the viceroy of Egypt, and he's like, you're going to hand over all of your land to the country, which we are going to be running. So, come on. It's not like you're going to say no to that. Oh, and also we're going to make you submit to a constitutional government. A government and constitution that we, the British, are going to dictate. With French consultancy, Jacques. Calm your horses. But, you know.
Flippity floppity, you're now on my property.
Pretty much. And while you're at it too, in case we didn't make it clear enough that we ran your government, we're going to demand permanent ministers to be appointed from France and England to sit in your government. Okay? Right.
Permanent?
Permanent members. We're just going to keep on appointing folks. They're just going to be like a third house, if you will. You know, they don't live here, but they basically take over all your internet. They're like your neighbor who figured out your password.
Oh no. My
And,
Wi-Fi.
So,
My
You don't even
wife
have
will-
any Wi-Fi. You got nothing to lose.
yeah, he's
You're right.
barely able to record at this point. But as you can imagine, Ismael wasn't a fan of this whole thing. So at this point, remember how like before he was like, we got to make ourselves as European as possible and like screw like all the old Egyptian stuff. We are going to be Europeans now. So now he's like, hey, Egyptian people. Man, you know, the Western Europeans really suck, don't they? Yeah, look, hey, I know we haven't talked recently. I've been kind of
Or
screwing over
ever.
your economy and not really listening to what you have to say. But I was thinking you could like kind of prop me up so we could fight against the British and the French together.
Problem
Yeah,
of
nudge,
how?
nudge.
Yeah. I mean, I'll come up with that, you know? Just like how I've solved our debt crisis. Like, we're not...
Easy.
It's not a financial... We're not in debt. Like, we're still in debt. We're not bankrupt anymore.
Maybe
Right?
if they industrialize heavily and make the military really strong, they can beat him. And then they'll be European
I'm,
again.
I'm just reminded of Caboose from Red versus Blue,
Yeah.
where you tell them, hey, that guy's our friend.
It just
Response
goes
is,
and shoots him.
okay, and shoots him in the head.
Yeah, pretty much. But the Egyptians are like, oh, you're a friend now, huh? Well, yeah. Tell you what, why don't you get back to that after you stop, like, you know, demanding forced labor out of us and taxing us to death and whipping us and all that. Okay? Bye. So Ishmael is like, oh, shit. And then meanwhile, the door just kicks open and our good friend Evelyn Barry's just there. And it's like, hold it right there. I heard every word of it with my big white superior ears. And I know that you're trying to sue us and overthrow our European consultancy that we've come here to help you with.
No,
You
no,
and your
Tom.
heathen type.
You're gonna sue us.
Suez Canal national security crisis. You're not going to be Khedive anymore. So Ismael, who was convinced that, just if he could make himself like a European monarch, all the Europeans are going to get his back, I guess didn't quite get the memo that Europeans were quite fond of, deposing of, how should we put it, undesirable monarchs in their own times.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one thing that the French Revolution taught us, is that if a king doesn't want to let go of his crown, it's easy enough by just threatening to cut off their head.
Yeah,
So-
to take the crown off.
Pretty much, yeah. So in 1879, but remember, technically, he's not king of Egypt. He's the Khedive of Egypt. He's representing the Ottoman Sultan in Egypt. So the British went over to the Ottomans and is like, I see you've recently gone bankrupt too. Well, old chap, it seems like you're in a jolly little predicament. And we are as well. So you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours, eh? Say, why don't you go ahead and kick Ismael out of power?
Yeah, what were the Ottomans doing all this time while Ismael was messing stuff up?
They were also going bankrupt because of their own attempts at reforming. And then
Good.
they got a new sultan who came in who was like, we gotta stop all this shit.
Were the
So we're gonna
Ottomans the old men? Was the Ottoman Empire the old man of Europe yet at this point?
At this point, they've kind of fallen into that position. They've tried to like westernize a lot, but then the Greeks kind of rebelled, and then the Greeks started bullying the Ottomans, and then when the Ottomans tried to hit the Greeks back for poking them with a stick, the Greeks got their big brothers, which is Great Britain, France, and Russia, to come in and basically bully the Ottomans again. And that's on top of them fighting in the Russians and losing a lot of money as well.
Oh yeah, they
So,
did do that.
They're just getting pushed back and forth a lot at this point. So they're not really in a good position to do much. But if they got a chance to, win some sympathies with the West, they went ahead and did it in this case. So sure enough, the Sultan just writes a letter to Ismael. It's like, Dear Khedive Ismael, you're no longer Khedive. Sincerely, the Ottoman Sultan. P.S. Your son's not going to take over now. He just sends it
Mom says it's my turn for the Khedive.
over. Yeah, pretty much. So
Why his son? Wait,
Because-
which person's son?
Ishmael's son, the old Egyptian Khedive, the guy who spent
Wouldn't you go for someone else outside of the family?
technically he made it. So early on, this was under Muhammad. He was able to make the back then it was still the governorship, not the viceroyalty of Egypt, a hereditary position through the Ottomans. So he doesn't want to overturn too much, and also Tufik is he's the guy who just sits at home and plays video games all day. He doesn't really give a fuck about his life at this point,
Good.
really. And
Wonderful.
the
Probably for the
last thing,
best.
the last thing he wanted to do was take over the responsibilities of running a bankrupt province / pseudo colony of the Ottoman Empire. But the British are like, well, that's perfect. If he doesn't want to rule, we'll just do it in his place. It's going to be great. So, sure enough, they go in, they prop up Tufik. And the first thing that Tufik does is he signs this thing that basically says Egypt will prioritize repaying foreign debts above all other things.
That's
so,
a recipe for
uh-oh.
success.
Yeah. So, paying your government? Nope, that's secondary. Financing any sort of local security? Secondary. Shoring up infrastructure? Nope. Maintaining the Suez Canal? Ha! You don't even own it anymore. But this wasn't a small portion of the total expenditure. It became 60% of the total government budget going to just paying back the debts and its interest. 60%. And this is already a country whose economy is in the toilet at this point.
Wow.
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, not exactly a very popular move. So, it's time for us to get a hero. I need a hero. Woo!
He needs to be strong. He gotta be fast.
And he's
I
got
don't
to
think that's
be
quite how it goes.
right on time. I forgot the full lyrics. But basically, Ahmed Urabi, or Urabi, this is going to be our hero of the story, if you will. He comes in, and he's got the whole thing for a hero, He starts off as a peasant who joins the army and works his way through the ranks, and he becomes a colonel.
Hey, stop.
He's he's literally the exact opposite of all the ruling crowns of Egypt at this point.
He's a
And-
man of the people.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's
He
Oh,
has
God.
common sense.
That too.
Oh,
He
Lord.
also has that as well, and he has the support of the people. And his like big move is in 1881, Tufik with the British basically come up to the Khedive of Egypt. It's like, you know what we should do next after basically screwing over your entire country's finances? Why don't you go ahead and write in a law that says that no man from peasant origin can rise up and become an officer in the military? And Tufik's like, okay, whatever. Let me just go back to playing on the Switch. And he goes ahead, signs this into law. And the British basically did this whole thing to go ahead and try to put in either foreign educated, like upper class officers of Egyptian birth, or just put in straight up Western military officers. So that way they could just prevent the army from being a national force, you know? Which is kind of clever if you think about it.
Pretty smart.
Now, the issue is, our good friend Urabi here, he started off as a peasant. He moved his way up through the ranks, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to rally a movement amongst the officers to go ahead and push back and demand that this law be repealed. And Tufik Pasha is like, you and what army? And Urabi turns around and is like, me and your army, which is all made up of all the peasants who you've basically forced into the military and are now denying them any chance of gaining any better station in life. So why don't you step down from your prissy ass throne for one moment and just repeal that law that you just signed into power? And it works.
Go figure.
My God. They've done it.
Because at this time, the British are like, you know what? This Urabi chap, he's rather charming, I'd say. I think we could make him a useful compatriot in our colonization efforts. So not only does he come in and he's like able to prove his worth, the British ministers and the Egyptian government tacitly go ahead and say, we're going to make you Minister of War. Like, you know, you're in charge of our Department of Defense for Egypt, an army which has been severely demilitarized, but it still kind of exists technically, you know? And the idea is, come work for us. We got all the benefits. You don't need to pay back on your debts and student loans. And you can then go on and work for our services as a pencil pusher and as a rubber stamp of Egyptian approval for all of our policies. What say you, old chap? And so Urabi comes in, but he doesn't let that get to his head. He goes ahead and starts a what's called the Egyptian Nationalist Party. And the slogan for this party? Egypt for the Egyptians. It's kind of a radical idea at this point.
Wow.
Seeing as like the foreign powers have basically stuck their fingers into every aspect of Egyptian society. And as part of his policies, he's like, you know, this whole thing came about when we lost control of the Suez Canal and we collapsed into our debt. So why don't we just default on the debt, not pay these guys back, and why don't we just take the Suez Canal for ourselves? And at this point, the British are just sweating bullets because they're like, oh no, they could say no to this? That's illegal. And
You
they're
can't
like,
not pay your debt that you can't afford.
right, what are we going to do? Are we going to have to live off the 6 pence and 5 million pounds that we already stole from your country? No, sir. That shall not go down at all. We paid for the construction of the Suez Canal. And the French is like, well, technically you didn't. We did. And the Egyptians too. Like, you did nothing but say that we were bad people for building this that now you're in charge of. And they're like, buzz off, France, before we kick your ass a second time. And so with this threat that they're just going to lose everything, the British finally decide to put down some military muscle. So in June of 1882, there's a bunch of riots going on in Alexandria, sparked mostly by the strong nationalist fervor that Urabi is able to channel against foreigners. And the British fleet, a fleet which, if you remember back to our Napoleon in Egypt episode, came up to the shores of Alexandria saying we're here to help you. We're just here to kick out the French. You know, let us know where they are, and we'll leave you alone. We're not here to colonize you by no means. Now, about a bit less than a century later, the British fleet turns its cannons on the city of Alexandria and just bombards the city, just leveling entire blocks of the entire city. And And then to like make their point extra clear, they go ahead and start landing British troops in the Canal Zone, just to make sure that the Suez Canal would stay under British protection. Because they're like, if we lose control of the British Canal, India's gonna go next. And next thing you know, we're just gonna be a couple of islands disconnected from the rest of the world. So they go ahead, they land troops, and Urabi, because like to his credit, he is a military officer. He does have military experience.
Jesus.
He does have military experience. So he goes ahead and he leads the military force and rebuffs the British briefly. But by September, he's been severely defeated, and then he's ultimately captured and exiled to Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka. And to top things, in 1883, our good friend Evelyn Barry is like taking a look over everything, and he's like, well, we got troops in Egypt, we run the government, and the canal is completely under our control. Well, I mean, the French tacitly own half of it, but we have troops on the canal. And we just bombarded one of the cities as if we're punishing our own people. So what do we do here? Is this a colony? Did we just end up with a colony?
Oh my god.
Looks like you
dare they.
fulfilled the final step of colonialism there.
Well, not quite, because the Ottomans are like, at this point, they like wake up just briefly to be like, wait a second, Egypt's technically ours. What are you doing in our backyard? So the British are like, well, look, I know what it looks like. Yes, we have troops in your sovereign territory. Yes, we run the local government in this area. Yes, we did just slaughter thousands of your civilian. But it's not colonization. No, we're here to protect Ottoman order. We're just here to run out the corrupt government, and we're actually the true representative of the Sultan. Yeah. Not like the French or Napoleon ever used that excuse before. So we are not your colonial administrator, Egypt. We are your consul general. We are here to consult in terms of how to make you a stronger country, and ultimately we are in charge of all the finances of your country. So,
As non-colonialists tend to be, yeah.
yes, exactly. This is not a colony. Not a colony. But in 1883, pretty much the British are running the show in terms of the canal, in terms of the entirety of Egypt as a whole. And our good friend Evelyn Barry, for his troubles, has now been promoted to be Lord Cromer. And he's now in charge of running all the affairs in Egypt on behalf of the British. Although technically the Khedive still exists. Just a little puppet to play with.
Lord Cromwell?
Cromer, not Cromwell. Cromer. Evelyn Baring, Lord Cromer. And yeah, so at this point, the Suez Canal, once the thought project of the French and the source of thousands of backbreaking man hours of the Egyptians, and heavily financed through loans by their exuberant Khedive, has ended up in the hands of the very people that loaned all that money in the first place. In short, the Suez Canal has led to the foreclosure of Egypt, and Britain's here to collect. Let's see how long they can hold on to this.
How British of them.
Indeed. But,
So,
yeah, go on.
why is the French not... they seem very passive about this whole Suez takeover here.
Yeah, well, I mean, getting raffle stomped by Prussia and having your entire government overthrown does tend to do that. If you remember from the earlier series when we were talking about when like Italy and Germany were like expanding their fascist powers in Europe during like the interwar period, and France was just kind of having a seizure every like few seconds.
That's right.
It's kind of in one of those periods right now. So France is just kind of like, well, we still got partial ownership, so that's good enough, I guess. And meanwhile, let's try to keep control of ourselves, because we just had another Napoleon, and now he's gone. So, yeah, we'll try to survive as best as we can. And meanwhile, the British are just like, haha, lols, we're rolling in all the money now. But things are going to turn around, and we're going to see just how extreme that is in our next episode. But until then, this has been Noteworthy History, and thanks for joining us.
Wonderful.